All right, it is 2 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Everybody on Zoom. We're also live on LinkedIn. We're live on Facebook and Twitter and also YouTube. So thank you for everybody who's logged on. This is our Leveraging Market Stats to Boost Your Business series. We've been doing this every single month for more than 2 years now. We're coming together, go over the official statistics that are coming from the Miami Association of Realtors. Miami Realtors is the source of MLS stats. We own the Southeast Florida MLS, so these stats are coming straight from our MLS. But more important, we're going to look at the trends. Where's the market today? Where is it going in the future? And a reason why this program has been such a success is our different Miami leaders that come on. And we have an incredible leader, one of our best leaders. If you guys were at Rock the Market last week, she was on the Big Brokers panels, did a tremendous job. Everybody here in the next hour, you're going to benefit from what she says. So Natascha, Tello, thank you so much. Live from Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah, Chris, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's get right to it. We might have some first-time realtors, new realtors. Maybe they're watching this for the first time. Why is this important? Why, as a realtor, maybe I just want to sell houses. Why do I need to know these stats?
Well, the reason is the numbers tell a story, right? I mean, the truth is, if we don't know which direction the market's going, how are we actually going to advise a client? How could we actually have a knowledgeable conversation with a customer if we don't have a knowledge of what the market's going to do? And the truth is, we need to be the economist of choice. If we're not telling the story, we're letting someone else tell the story. And we don't know what kind of story they're going to be telling, considering negative media sells. Well, the media is going to tell a negative story, and that's not always the truth, as we'll get into later, Chris, because there was an article recently that wasn't so favorable and it wasn't really right, which wasn't fair. But the truth is, we need to be able to digest the information. And when we're equipped with the information, we can have much better conversations with buyers and sellers of real estate and really advise them. Because the truth is, at the end of the day, you want to be their real estate consultants. You want to be able to help them when they've got questions, whether they're buying or selling. Maybe they're renting. Maybe they just want to know the value of their property. But if you don't know what's going on, you have no way of being able to give them that information.
No, I love it. I love it. And I was a reporter. I'm a former reporter for 13 years.
I'm sorry. Just kidding.
Yeah, so I was a reporter, but it's true. If it bleeds, it leads. So you're exactly right. So we have to do a better job in terms of leading the story here. Okay, guys, so thank you. This is what we're going to go over. Official August 2023 stats. Other people might have released statistics. They're not official. What you're about to get here are the official stats from the Southeast Florida MLS. And so here's a look at our future stats webinars. We already have the leaders scheduled for October, November, December. October will be Eddie Blanco. November will be Chandra, former YPN president. And December, our chairman, Ines Hegadas Garcia. So please, if you want to register the future ones, please do. And yes, this is being recorded. The number one question that's going to be on the chat and also on LinkedIn. We have a big following on LinkedIn. So thank you everybody on LinkedIn who's been following us and watching this live. Number one question is, can we get this PowerPoint? And the answer is yes. If you guys could put it, if you're in LinkedIn, if you could put it in the chat box, your email. Afterwards, I'll write down all the emails and I'll send this entire PowerPoint to you. Also, if on Zoom, if you guys could write in the chat box your email, I'll make sure afterwards to compile it and to send it to you guys, the entire PowerPoint. Okay, so the number one thing, if you could write down only one thing, is this website right here, sfmarketintel.com. This is where we try to put all of our stats, all of our infographics, videos, the market reports, everything right here, sfmarketintel.com. I might mention it once or twice more. Okay, all right, Natascha, I'm going to go through these really quickly. These are some top indicators from the August, a little preview of what we're going to see, the August 2023 stats. So just in Miami, take a look at the 600,000 to 1 million home sales, up double digits. And our showing appointments up 2%. That's for South Florida, the entire South Florida region. And I'll go through these 4 counties and I'll ask you a question, Natascha. Here's Broward, 1 million in up sales, up double digits in comparison to last year. Palm Beach, the one key point to look at is condo sales. They are up year over year. Martin County up 4% for condo sales. So the one question I had here is, Natascha, on showing appointments, now we're tracking this, and it's been 4 consecutive months of South Florida showing appointments are up year over year. How is that an indicator of the market?
Well, the funny thing is we're showing and we're trending about 2% across all the counties. And really what this is it's a what I would call a very early leading indicator of where the market, where where the interest is, and where closings and pendings ultimately will wind up. Pendings are typically a leading indicator. Closings are a lagging indicator in our business, but showings is a very early on. It kind of gives us what's to come in the market.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Okay, and we will continue to keep an eye on that. All right, so let's get into another what continues to be a hot talking point in real estate is mortgage rates. 7% now. Last time I checked was at 7.3. Natascha, what are you seeing? I know earlier NAR chief economist Lawrence Yun said, hey, there's a chance rates could get to 8%. What impact, what are you hearing out there in the market on rates?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, thankfully yesterday the Fed held the rate, at this go around, but the likelihood is that we will probably continue to see an increase throughout into next year. So I'll just take us back when rates looked like they were going to start to go up. I called an emergency meeting of some of our top agents last year, February. And I gave everybody an example of what a typical, let's just call it an atypical home, $500,000 approximate price range, and what that would be at a 3.5% rate, which is where rates were at that time, versus what they would be at 5, 6, 7. And, I actually went to 8.5. And a lot of our people were like, there's no way, it's not going there. Well, the truth is, here we are at the doorsteps of that. Now, every time rates go up, I want to take you back to an analogy. Think about the frog in the boiling water. Every time the stove kind of gets turned up just a little bit more, because it's ratcheted in such small increments, it's not felt. The frog doesn't jump out of the pot, right? If you put a frog in cold water and just turn it up ever so slightly, the frog stays. No different than what happens when consumers get accustomed and used to something. It takes a little bit of time, and then we get accustomed to something. Historically, though, take a look back at where rates have been historically, and we're back to historic normal rates. I mean, I think back to the first time I bought a home. My husband and I bought our first home in the late 90s. I was thrilled to just get the house. I paid the 8.25% all day, every day, plus we paid points, but I just wanted the house. It didn't matter, but it does take time. We're starting to, again, when rates went up to about 5, you saw a little lag it takes about 90 days. We see a little bit of a lag in the marketplace. When they went to 6, we saw the lag. Then they went to 7. We're feeling the lag right again. And it usually takes about 90 to 120 days till people get used to, well, it's not going back anytime soon, because the initial psychology is going to go backwards. I'm going to wait because they'll probably drop again. And as people start to realize the likelihood is it's not going to drop, this becomes the new normal. Now people start to move forward.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I love that. I took down a lot of notes. I love that analogy, the frog in the boiling water. Love it. And then also 90 to 120 days to get used to it. So that's excellent. Okay. And, is it time for realtors to get a little bit more creative, Natascha? You have these programs. Are your agents looking to these more now?
Yeah, we talked about it actually at the big broker panel last week. I think, this is what we need to do. I mean, realtors, and I mean creative in a good sense, right? Because our industry, has historically gotten creative in a bad way. What I mean by getting creative is, so you've got the 2-1 mortgage buy downs that allows a home buyer to, it's that boiling frog, right? You start at a lower rate, maybe instead of 7. So now the rate starts at maybe 5 or 5.5. And then next year it goes to 6 or 6.5. And then it goes ultimately on its 3rd year to what the prevailing rate at that time was. And it gets locked in there. And that allows that buyer, where those first 2 years where they've got maybe some bigger out-of-pocket expenses, you've got moving costs, renovation, rehab, it allows them to build up to the rate. That's one program. So that's like your first one right there. Your second thing is assumable, and no one's been talking about this. I've been talking about it since March of last year when everybody was like, what are you talking about? This doesn't exist. Well, it was very common though, prior to even, I mean, I've been in this business now 23 going on 24 years. And when I got in, I remembered hearing about assumable rate mortgages because no one's done them in over 25 years. So it's hard to even find people in our industry who know how to do them. But the beauty of the FHA loans and the VA loans is there's an assumable clause in those loans that allows a new buyer to assume the existing mortgage from that prior homeowner. So if you think about it, and again, everyone is like, yeah, but the challenge we have is that the prices have gone up significantly. But if there's an assumable loan, now let's say that mortgage balance is, for arguments, $300,000. Well, that new buyer could assume that $300,000 mortgage. And let's just say hypothetically, the price of that property today is $600,000. So that would mean they would need a second loan for the difference plus their down payment. So let's say they're putting 100 down. Now we need another loan for 200,000. So we assume that old loan, that old FHA loan, let's just say it's 3%. And now we get a second mortgage for the $200,000 at today's rate. Let's just say hypothetically it's 7%. Well, now you've given that buyer a blended rate of closer to 5%. And so that's the beauty of it. There's actually a company, they were just announced last week. I don't know if you saw this, Chris, but it was announced, I think it was Housing Wire. It was one of the publications announced Roam, ROAM. They are a new tech startup, and their intent is to be able to facilitate the assumable loan process. So we'll see kind of where that goes. I'm not going to speak for them. I don't know them. Don't have any interest in the company, don't know anything about them other than everything that I've read now. But I do think there's an opportunity in that space for somebody to take that forward, because I think like we said on the front end, I think it's the new normal of where the interest rates are going to be. Fed had to do something to tame inflation. I know we'll get into why we become sort of a victim to that. But the truth is that I think we've got an entire generation that's out there of assumable loan products. And that's a great opportunity. So that would be number two. Number three, buying down the mortgage points, right? So one of the beauties of our marketplace is we did not feel a price pullback. Some areas of the country have seen a reduction in pricing, maybe pricing gone backwards. That's not been the story for South Florida at all. As a matter of fact, it's actually been the opposite. Our prices have maintained and actually grown in many price points. So what that does is that gives us the historical data that the property, so that the appraisers can use, so that the values have maintained. What that allows us to do, though, however, is to move forward when a buyer cannot afford, or let's just say they're priced out, and maybe because of the change in interest rates, it now bumps them into a different price bracket. This allows us in the negotiation to, rather than to reduce the price or to ask for a lower price, is to ask the seller to pay points on behalf of the buyer to be able to buy that interest rate down. And so we are still in a really good point in time where that is a big opportunity. And then, of course, you've got lots of new lender programs. One of the things I don't see on here is what the developers are doing, whether it's single family homes or, in our condo and vertical markets. They are offering significantly lower mortgage products because they're able to buy down those points directly as a builder. And so again, getting creative, looking for solutions instead of thinking to myself, oh my gosh, it's not going to work and I can't do it. No, how can I make it happen? How can we put this transaction together? I think that's what we have to start, becoming better at.
Yeah, no, excellent. And that was kind of what you talked about on the panel, how in a shifting market, it's about how you think about it and how you react. And those are incredible points here, for everybody online that's watching this. Great.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's a lot of this is mindset, and it goes back to like fundamentals in our business. It's mindset, it's what you think about, and what you focus on. So if you focus on the negative and you focus on this can't happen, this won't work, it can't get done, you're just going to attract more of that. If you focus on the how can I make it happen? What can we do? How do I find products and services? How can I educate myself? How do I get on Zooms like this to learn more? Then that's what you're going to get more of.
Yeah, phenomenal. That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at our market fundamentals. We're going to look at our population, migration, new companies moving here, and this is Natascha mentioned this at the top about how there was some reports that came out earlier this year about Miami's population, that we are losing, people are leaving Miami, and so these are the stats from the Census Bureau. And here's a look at our population. Yes, it went down in 2020, 21, but it went down for everybody because that was COVID. Borders were closed, and especially impacted us where we are so dependent on international migration.
Yeah, and I think everything. I mean, people were just, people were locked down, and people moved to, maybe in the very early stages of the pandemic, nobody really knew. So a lot of people kind of got out of cities, right? And so we saw that initial decline, and then we saw that surge. And so that article we're speaking to really wasn't fair. What they did is they took a 3-year period and said Miami's losing. I'm like, yeah, no, you're wrong.
Yeah,
that was just very skewed.
Yeah, it was very skewed, clickbait headline. So
yeah, I mean, the truth is, Miami's been the recipient of so much migration south. I mean, just you don't have to do anything other than step out of wherever you're living right now, walk out of your building, walk out of your house, and just take a look at the license plates. Just take a look at the people driving around here. Watch where their license plates are coming from. We can see, I mean, the tri-county, tri-state county, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, that's nothing new to South Florida. And yet you see so many more New York plates that have shown up. California, Texas, Chicago, and then we'll get into a global, but these are the places where people are coming from. Number one, our great weather. Number two, pro-business state. Number three, low taxes. There are a lot of reasons. And we have a vibrant economy. If you look across the country, that is not the story for a lot of cities. You just have to read the major publications headlines to know what's happening in a lot of our cities right now. And that's not the Miami story. Our story is very different.
Yeah, it's very different. And this is exactly, a couple of graphics that you were talking about, all the different financial and tech companies that have moved down here. Incredible. Yeah, Blackstone and Citadel.
Correct. And that wasn't the old story. Like we talked about that at the broker panel. So historically, as South Florida, we were known as the vacation spot. People would have secondary homes or third properties here because we were more vacation or it was, asset preservation. Today, and maybe our economy was probably, hospitality, right? That was the extent of our economy, was our cruise lines and our hotels and all of that. Today, we have the financial sector that's moved down here, which has been huge, as well as the tech sector, and kind of those two go hand in hand.
Yeah, and look what it's doing to our average adjusted gross income. This is our chief economist, Gabe Corrigan, looked at this IRS migration data, and you could take a look at the wealth that has moved in. This only goes back to 2021, so numbers could be even higher once we get to 22. Numbers, but incredible wealth, right? Exactly what you're talking about.
Correct. A complete different. I mean, just, you can look at all the counties and look at it, but just start at Miami-Dade. I mean, look where we were for adjusted income, household income in 2019, and look where we were just 2 years later. I mean, it's more than doubled. And that's what it's amazing for the opportunity that it's creating for South Florida, and it's creating a challenge for those who are local to South Florida, right? So it's kind of this dual-edged sword that you have to deal with.
Right. And so here's a look at the top feeder counties that are moving here.
There we go.
Top out-of-state counties. Yeah, no surprise. Number one is New York. Number two is LA. But how could realtors here, how could they leverage this, Natascha?
Oh, I live number 5 because Queens County is where I'm from.
Oh.
So the truth is, how do you leverage this? Well, there's a couple of different things. Number one, are you focused on building relationships with agents in those cities, counties, and states where the customers are coming from? So what are you doing to build relationships, that referral opportunity, right? There's a referral opportunity in our industry that doesn't exist in a lot of industries. So in ours, it's a big one. Referrals is where it's at. The second thing is, what could you do potentially on social media to be exposed in those areas? 3, are you hosting some sort of, whether it's an online or in-person seminar on owning property, buying property in South Florida? What does that look like? So there's, I mean, I could tell you lots and lots of ways to do it, but those would be probably my top three. If I was an agent, that's what I would be doing.
That's perfect. A plus.
No, if I am an agent, but if I was practicing as an agent, that's what I would be doing.
Great. Okay, and here's some more information about our migration data. We look at out-of-state driver's license exchanges because once you move to Florida, you have a certain number of days to change your license plate. So that's a great way to look at it. It's the same states: California, New York, New Jersey. Let's move on. Have you heard of this stat? 1,142 new net residents per day in Florida. Incredible. And then here's some forecasts. As you can see, it's not going to be changing anytime soon, up to 2032 at least. And here's a look. Yeah, and then here's a look at our population. We try to break down the different age groups and how the population has changed in the last, from 2011 to 2021.
This is really important. Hang out here for a second, Chris,
Sure.
Because historically people would think of Florida as one of those places where when you were no longer wanting to work and you wanted to retire, that's kind of where you would go. But take a look at where our population is. That is no longer the story. Our population growth is actually happening in the prime work years, right? In the prime earning years. So sort of that 35 to 55 age group. That's really a big deal. That also, if I was a developer, that's going to tell me what I need to be building.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe that's the reason why downtown Miami is just exploding with all those cranes there and all the construction.
Absolutely. That's a lot to do with that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have some fun here. We're going to test everybody here on the Zoom and LinkedIn. Do you guys know our international global study? We're actually putting together our information from you guys for next year's study or 2023 study. But here's a look at 2022. First, I want to ask you, what is the top foreign country purchasing in South Florida? If you could write that in the chat box, we'll see who has the correct answer. Number two is how many total countries purchase real estate in South Florida? And number three, what percentage of Florida global real estate sales are made in South Florida? At the end, we'll take a look at the answer. So if you could put them in the chat box. And the winner, what should the winner receive, to Natascha?
What are they? I don't know. You tell me.
No, we don't have a prize.
Do you guys have a prize? Coaching session? I'll give you a coaching session.
Yeah, we don't have an official prize. I was just joking. But yeah, so we'll see at the end who can answer those questions. All right, median sale price. Let's see where our prices are now. Official August 2023 statistics that we'll be releasing to the media today. And as exactly what Natascha said earlier, median prices continue to rise in Miami. They have increased for 140 consecutive months. That is almost 12 years. Amazing.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable growth.
And here in Broward, here's a look at Broward median sale prices. Palm Beach. And then Natascha, the question I had here from Miami, and we also show you the historical look, but in terms of Miami sale prices, we continue to be, one of the tops in the country. You had talked about a little bit earlier, but why is Miami's prices increasing, whereas other metros, for example, San Francisco, are not?
Again, everything is driven by the local economy. So if we take a look at where we are sort of in the commercial sectors, right? And I know this is a residential conversation, but if you look at the commercial sectors nationally, we're seeing a massive pullback. We're seeing vacancies at the highest level. We're seeing companies shut down. We're seeing companies pull out of areas. That's exactly the opposite of what we're actually seeing right now in South Florida, because we're continuing to grow from an economic, attracting businesses. And with businesses come people. There needs to be people that work at these companies, right? There's people that own these companies. And so that is what's continuing to attract. Secondary to that, we have less inventory historically than we might have had otherwise for a multitude of reasons that I don't know if we're even going to get into that today. But because we still have lower inventory in most price points, not all price points, but in most price points, we have significantly less than normal inventory. It's forcing prices up. It's a supply demand issue.
Yeah, it's exactly what Ron Sheffield, an incredible experienced broker, I remember he always says that if you have less than 6 months of supply,
Supply.
prices are going to go up. That's
It
just
is what it is.
it is.
It's just, again, it's super simple. You don't have to know anything other than it's supply and demand. We don't have enough supply for the demand we still currently have. And one of the benefits that South Florida has in a market where we're seeing this interest rate go up is that we still have a significant amount of cash.
Yeah.
And with our single family home markets, about a quarter of them are sold for cash. Our condo market, 50% or more, depending on which submarket you're in. That's, keeping things moving at a pretty quick pace though.
Right. Yes. Yeah. A lot of other markets don't have the benefit of how much cash that South Florida has.
Correct.
Exactly. And here's the inventory, what you had talked about, where in comparison, you could see the average and how we're not close to it.
No.
That's inventory. And then, so let's move on here. Another graphic I had here was from the Knight Frank report in terms of how many square meters you could purchase 1 million in selected cities. And you could see where Miami, incredible value still, even though our prices are up.
Correct. But just take a look for, all the global ones are fantastic, but just take a look. We know where our buyers domestically are coming from. So let's look at LA and New York. So in New York, the number is 33 square meters for $1 million. You get double that in South Florida, almost double, right? 64. So just under 2 meters short. Okay. So you cut out a little closet, but you're getting so much more for the money. And with LA, it's the same thing. So San Francisco is not on here, but the story is the same. And again, all international.
Exactly. Okay. All right. And so here, this is a comparison because, we always have questions in terms of, hey, prices are really, really skyrocketing the last couple of years. Is this going to be another 2008? And Natascha, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, so I do not see another 2008 in front of us. And here's a couple of things. And I know you've got some information on there. Yes, the 2008, we had a ton of speculative buying, right? We had Nina and Ninja loans. People basically just needed to fog a mirror. In some cases, it wasn't even the real person, and they got a mortgage. Our lending standards were significantly more restrictive this go around. That's number one. Number two, the last time the economy faltered, it had a lot to do with, housing sent the country into recession, right? We created that banking crisis. That happened was a result of the housing crisis and the mortgage crisis that happened. This time, the story is very different. We have people in homes that are at significantly lower interest rates. We have probably the lowest number of defaulted properties, whether it's short sale, whether it's, in REO, the lowest number of foreclosures historically as well. And so as long as our South Florida economy remains strong, where people have income to pay their debts and the interest rate on those are low, majority of people have a fixed rate mortgage. The last time around, we also had a lot of people on adjustables. And so when rates, moved up, and prices pulled back, a lot of people made a financial or business decision to walk away. That's not our story. So if you find somebody that's in a situation where for whatever reason the income has disappeared or their income has been dropped significantly or they can no longer afford their house and they're in, please do not, for whatever reason, let these homes go anywhere near foreclosure because there's significant equity in the property. Right? Help them through that process and get out from under that debt and reset their lives. But please don't let people lose their homes.
Yeah, no, yeah. The equity is what they have is incredible right now. So
there's significant equity in most properties.
Yeah. And here's a look exactly what Natascha was talking about foreclosures and the high credit scores now. Let's move on here. This is a slide I put together, with interest rates now, with interest rates elevated now, why buy a home now? It's the best hedge, right, against inflation. And as you were talking about earlier, you have a fixed rate and your income tends to rise over time, right?
Yeah, the truth is, it's, had we all had a crystal ball, we would have all bought multiple homes in 2019 and the January of 2020. Right? What winds up happening then thereafter, nobody could have forecast or projected. We all kind of thought maybe the market was slowing down in 2019 and things were going to shift. And the truth is exactly the opposite happened. And so that's why it's called hindsight, because you see it after the fact, you see it later on. It's not in our purview in front of us. Right now, buying actually, not only is it a hedge against inflation, because we see what's happening, especially when you're buying a good piece of real estate in a great area, but what you're also doing is controlling what that monthly expense is. Because if you're renting, there is no control. The landlord has full control. So I'm
Yeah.
100%. I am long on housing.
Long on housing, so am I. All right, so let's take a look at closed sales. Official statistics from August 2023. They're down. And if you've been following us along the last several months, why are they down? Well, it's in comparison to August 22, which was a very good month. But the numbers are trending. They're a little bit better than we saw last month.
Yeah. And so I think if we take a look at it, if we were to break this out, you're going to see the difference, right? So one of the subsegments, if we broke it out, single family, condo, and townhouse different, what you're going to see where we're going, let's just say we're going backwards in numbers. Single family, it's inventory. It is the lack of inventory in the median sales price and below. And this, maybe affordability, let's call it in the luxury price points. And then if we're looking at it truly, where we may be seeing some challenges showing up is in our condo market. And that really has a lot to do with what's happening with insurance and with the reserve requirements that our associations are now under that they were not under in prior years.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And so insurance is actually the second biggest thing, right? So number one would be obviously interest rates, but let's just say somebody had cash to buy. Insurance is the biggest hindrance right now. And in our commercial markets, or let's call it our condo markets, right? So the large multifamily properties, these associations have seen their insurance rates go anywhere from 30 to 70% increase this year. Now, layer on top of that, the reserve requirements that the Surfside disaster created and the rules that are now in effect where they have to be fully reserved by 2025, that's creating a challenge in that space for us.
Yeah. Natascha, let me ask you about insurance rates for homeowners. They have been rising lately. Do you see the recent passage of that in the state legislature, that bill to reform insurance? I believe it's going to be create a $1 billion fund. Do you think we'll see some changes there and hopefully start lowering that insurance for homeowners?
Hoping. Again, I think our storms have a lot to do with what happens with insurance rates. So if we could end at the end of this hurricane season without another major one, we might fare better. But again, anything that comes through the legislature, it takes 12 months or so to trickle through till we start seeing it at the local levels, probably 12 to even 18 months. So I do think over time we'll get some reprieve, but I think we're in for a short haul of this increase.
Right. Okay. And as part of how, if to live here, you accept that it's
the price for living in paradise.
Exactly. That's how you, perfect.
It's the paradise tax. We don't have a state income tax. Therefore, some of other things cost us a little bit more.
There you go. You're right.
We're still saving though.
Okay, so here's Broward. We got the similar story here. It's interesting how the three counties somewhat follow each other. You can see Palm Beach fared a little bit better, almost even year over year in terms of closed sales. All right, so more ways that we could help realtors on this program here. And this was actually, you had mentioned, this is the first time you were on this program, you had mentioned leveraging
the Market Watch.
Market Watch. And right after that, I've been mentioning it every single time. I thought it was an incredible tip. Could you explain again to the realtors here about why they should be using this?
Absolutely. So when you're logging into Matrix, you can set your Market Watch up to whatever you want it to be, meaning you can choose the particular market segment that you focus on. So let's just say you only focused on condos. You could choose just condos. If you only focused on single family, you could choose that. You can choose the area for where you want it to give you the information. So if I was an agent and maybe my farm area was a particular building or a particular single family home community, I would have myself a market watch set for that local area. And every single week I would be pulling up, I would know everything that's going on, what's come back on the market, what new properties have hit the market, what's happening as far as pricing, and what's happening as far as closings and pendings are concerned. And this would be something that I would then take. I'd make a social graphic out of it, because you can make it a JPEG and just post it on social, get it out in your newsletters and or your marketing pieces to your database. This is how you educate the consumer on what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is how you stay top of the market without getting complicated. You don't need to digest 50,000 graphs. Chris and I love the data, right? So some of us are data nerds. That's okay. Some of you are not, and you're like, oh, I don't want to see another stat. Don't give me this. These are pretty little bars. They're graphs. They're super easy. And if you are looking at it constantly, like every 7 days as a habit, then it becomes easy. And all of a sudden you become the expert in the area you specialize in.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yes, simplify your life. Simple, and this is a simple way
Make
to
it easy.
make it
Yep.
easy. Here are some other ways to make it easy. SunStats really makes it easy for realtors to do their own infographic. And then we also have zip code reports on the Miami Association of Realtors website, sfmarketintel.com. I told you I would say it again. We have every single zip code, all the metrics for that zip code that you could find on sfmarketintel.com. And of course, RPR, another member tool. Here's RPR, what you could get. And then
the SF, I want to give a shout out to Gay, because her SF market intel stats, they're really good. As a matter of fact, if you're watching this now, what I would do is go on that site and pull down what she shared at the Rock the Market event last week. Her data is very accurate and very good. And it will help you. It can unpack a lot of things. Like there's a lot in there. So just wanted to kind of give Gay the shout out, because I think that stuff is really good.
Very much deserved. And actually, to get Gay's, she has Economic Insights, a blog that she updates 2 or 3 times a week that you could find on our website. And
this is huge, because not everybody has this, Chris. I mean, it's a big deal. Forget local association. I mean, we're very, very fortunate to have that.
Yes. She has definitely, helped everybody here at the association. But here's a look at the infographics that you guys could create. I'm sure most of you are using SunStats, but if you're not, you should be. Free, easy to use. I created this in literally a minute.
Super easy.
That's an infographic. Okay, so let's keep moving along here for new pending sales, best indicator of future closed sales. And we're going to take a look, maybe a preview of what's to come. And it looks to be the same trends in terms of sales.
Yeah, we're trending. I mean, we are trending backwards, but we have to understand where we came from and sort of where this is sort of, hopefully this is now expected. Our industry is starting to understand that this is an expectation, and we need to prepare people for that, because we came off some of the best years in real estate.
Yeah. 2021. Will we ever see another 2021? I mean, that was historic.
It was historic.
It was a combination of everything that came together. 2% rates. The inventory was there. We had the COVID that forced, remote work. It was really.
It was everything. It was a culmination of things. It was builders for the prior 10 years having not built the inventory that was going to be necessary to absorb. It was the wave of the Airbnb. It was the hedge funds who've taken down a lot of our inventory. Like it was the culmination of so many things that created this shortage of inventory.
Yeah.
And that demand.
Yeah. And like you said, now we're moving to a more normalized and how it was before that, those incredible years.
Correct. And when it even though we go back to more of a normalized period, it doesn't feel that way when you're coming off of such height. Normal feels like, oh my gosh, what's happened? And it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at dollar volume, another important metric. And this always boggles my mind. Look at $1.85 billion in Miami-Dade, 1.36 billion in Broward, 1.59 billion in Palm Beach. Really speaks to the power of our industry and how fortunate, right, that we are to be in South Florida.
Well, we're a massive driver for the economy nationally. I mean, I want you to think. So there's a, and you can pull this, there's an NAR report, 2022 report that talks about the amount of GDP, gross domestic product, that real estate sales creates. And it's 17% of the GDP in 2022 was created as a result of real estate. And Florida, $112,500. That equals to $112,000. $112,500 for every real estate sale is what we create. So, in other words, every U.S. home sale generates 2 jobs.
Wow.
So think about that. When we think about why the Fed is increasing rates, right? So the Fed is tasked with keeping inflation at bay, right? Keeping the economy moving at a clip, and their target is this magical 2% number, right? We're coming in over 3 right now. Lots of things in that. I don't want to create a whole economics class, but there's a lot that drives that. But when the Fed increases the interest rate, the unintended target and the target becomes real estate. Well, look how much of the economy we drive. Just think about that, right? If we create 2 jobs for every home sale, if they reduce, if we want to increase the unemployment rate, because that's what the Fed's target is, right? They've got to increase the unemployment to slow the economy down. That's ultimately the goal. Well, if you slow down housing, it happens automatically. And by increasing the rate, they slow down housing. And so think about all the jobs we create when one sale happens. Look at all the people involved in that one sale. Forget we've got the realtor and the broker, we've got mortgage, we've got title, we've got the home inspector, we've got pest control, we have roofers, we have landscapers, we have painters, we have plumbers, we have moving companies, tile, carpet, Home Depot, I mean, you name it. There's so much that goes in to just one sale.
Incredible. And I remember when COVID first happened, one of the first points was that this is going to hurt real estate. Nobody's going to buy homes. And actually, during COVID, real estate is what carried the economy, right? We saved during that time, no?
Yeah, I mean, truly, initially, it didn't feel that way, right? For the first, 2, 3, 4 months, depends on where you were geographically. It kind of didn't feel that way. And we had to learn to do business in a completely different way and all of those things, especially if you were dealing with condos at that time. But the truth is, look what wound up happening and how we zoomed forward. So, yeah. So we had a little to do with the inflation. It wasn't all oil, it wasn't all the other factors out there. Housing had something to do with it.
We had something to do with it, yes. Okay. All right, months of supply. This is a very important indicator. All eyes are on this number. So essentially 6 to 9 months is where we want to be. Balanced market. It's good for buyers, good for sellers. If it's less than 6 months, it's a seller's market. More than 9 months, it's a buyer's market. And obviously now we're in a seller's market, but it could vary if you're looking at different price ranges and zip codes and neighborhoods. And here's a calculation of how you could do your months of supply. I'm going to go ahead and skip over this, but you're going to get this when I email you the PowerPoint. As long as you put your email there in the chat box, I'm definitely going to email to you. All right, months of supply. Miami-Dade, all properties, 4.6 months, 3.5 months for single family, 5.4 for condos. And yes, one of the questions I have for you, Natascha, here on months of supply, there was a report from LoopNet saying that Miami is ranked #1 for most apartments under construction per share of inventory. Now, this is, I think they said half of the new units that are coming are in downtown Miami and probably will be arriving in 2024. But the headline in that article was, "Can Miami absorb 28,000 new apartments?" Isn't that similar to what they said after 2009?
Yeah, it is actually. And again, we go through these cycles, we go through these waves. How much of, how many of those units will actually be delivered? That's a whole nother, I think, conversation for another day, because I do think we're going to see pauses. We're already seeing a couple of things paused, purely based on when you look at the financing, right? Does it make sense to take a project to market? And in some cases, those projects will be shelved for a future date. And in some cases, those projects will be flipped to some other type of product that will come out of the ground in that particular space. Right now, we are still seeing, I mean, again, new construction numbers, the data is a little different. It's not necessarily reported through the MLS. So we're relying on a individual developer or company or something to report their numbers, which isn't always going to be as transparent as, let's say, just putting things on our MLS. So if you take a look at the graph, I like to explain it this way. If you take a look at the graph, if you look at the green bar kind of, that's our condo supply. So you, this is the green or the blue? No, it's hard to see. You'll see the one that started at green is condo, right? So it started at 5 months, kind of pulls down, and that's where you saw, sort of that inventory get taken down over the last several years. And so 2019 comes, and we're seeing a buildup come back in of inventory. In certain price points, we had a lot more inventory than maybe was ever realized by most people. And then, pandemic hits and all that inventory gets taken down. And we go from, in some cases, 60 months of inventory to 3. Like, it went that dramatically. And now we're seeing that inventory build up. It's just, a lot of that is price dependent. So if you take a look at the market, the higher the price, the longer the days on market are starting to grow. And that's normal. That's just, that is what it is. And so it's really challenging to be able to say, we kind of brush a broad stroke of it, and we say, we've got 5 months of inventory. Well, in some price points, we only have 3. In some price points, we have 2, and in others, we might have 12. And that's kind of how, you really need to look at it. And that's why knowing that local market and being a hyper expert is so important. However, what are we building? We are building more of the condo product. And so if you're taking a look at inventory, that's naturally where it's going to grow because there's more of it coming. The single family home market, if you take a look at that blue, the blue line here, we start out back in 2021 with 2 months of inventory, and we've kind of grown, and now we've pulled back. Well, part of that is, some people are sort of locked in their homes, or they're not selling. There's no urgent reason to. And so if I'm only moving because I wanted one extra bedroom, or maybe I needed an extra garage, I may not make a financial decision to move if my interest rate went from 3 to 7 or whatever that number is. It's people who are motivated because there's a life change happening that are going to move. So, and we're not building. And then when you think about inventory, we're not building a significant number of single family homes. I mean, the counties, other than, Western Palm Beach County, if you look at Dade County, you look at Broward County, we are built out for the most part. Yeah, we've got some wedges and we've got a couple of little pockets, but for the most part, there's no really swaths of land that we're building single family homes on. And so if you take a look, and that's normal for a growing city, that is just absolutely normal. Historically, if you look at any of the large cities across the United States, you're going to see that they start off building single family homes. And then as they build out, everything starts to go vertical. And that's what we're seeing. Like, we're seeing suburban markets in Dade and Broward where you're going vertical with condo that 20 years ago didn't exist. But that is actually very normal in the cycle of the life cycle of real estate nationally. So,
yeah, no, very good points. I live in Palmetto Bay, and single family suburban area, and we're seeing, I believe, 3 or 4 very high rise condo buildings that are being built right now. So
it's our suburb markets in both counties. We're starting to see them go vertical in certain parts, certain cities. Some cities are voting against it, by the way, which I'm seeing.
And it's like you said, I mean, we have the ocean on one side and we have the Everglades on the other. So yeah,
we're kind of locked. There's nowhere else to go. So unless they push the Everglades out, don't think that's happening. And unless we fill in the ocean, that ain't happening. Nowhere to go.
Right. Okay, so here's a look at Broward, 3.3 months. So fewer than Miami, and Palm Beach, even fewer, 3.2 months of supply. That's how long it would take to sell all the properties at the given rate of sales. Okay, so 1 million and above, and you can see the months of supply is increasing. But again, I'll reference Ron Sheffield. He says, this is common. This is we could handle it, and this is normal in terms of the months of supply increasing for 1 million and up.
Correct. I mean, having a very tight short supply and be over a million. Not everybody, that's not the price point for everybody, right? So for it to have been such a tight supply was very abnormal.
Right. And this is actually what you said just a few moments ago in terms of, hey, when you look at different price ranges, it could be different. For instance, condos, a million and above, 12.5 months. Well, that's a buyer's market. It's over
Correct.
9. And then you could take a look at also single family, 1 million and up. We're almost at 9 months of supply in August 2023. So it varies, right, with different price ranges, and then you could do it for your neighborhood that you're working.
Yeah, it varies by single family, varies by condo, varies by townhome, it varies by county, it varies by city, by subdivision, by neighborhood. So you cannot brush a broad stroke over the word real estate because it is so hyper local.
Yeah, and let's get hyper local right now in terms of cities. Here's a look at months of supply. The hottest market in Miami-Dade for single families, Miami Gardens at 1.6, and then Kendall is for condos. And here's Broward. Are you, Natascha, are you mostly work in the Broward County?
I've got offices in both. I live in Dade, but I've got offices in Broward. So, we're working both counties. So I can talk to both of those. Not to Palm Beach as much.
Okay, yeah. So for Miami and Broward, any cities or neighborhoods that you want to talk about that are getting maybe more interest now? Or
so again, in Dade County, you're going to see Miami Gardens coming in at #1. It's gotten a lot of attention. We had an innovation zone going on there. We've got lots of new businesses coming into the Miami Gardens area. And again, when you look at those 5 cities, like whether it's Miami Gardens or even like Homestead has been growing. It's affordable. Hialeah's been on that list forever, right? But Cutler Bay, Kendall, it's affordability. And so when we're looking at the single family home markets where we're seeing the lower supply, it's obvious. It's what more people, there are more buyers in that price point than there are maybe in a higher price point in another neighborhood. So that's why we're seeing that. Okay. And if you go to Broward, it's the same story. I mean, Pembroke Pines has been on this list pretty much forever. And if we look at all of those cities, it's the same reason. It's affordability.
They're looking for affordability, and that's where you get it. Yeah.
That's where you're getting it. And again, there's schools, there's a lot of things that go into it, but the affordability, the lower the price point, the bigger the buyer pool. The higher price point, the smaller the buyer pool gets.
Excellent. Okay. Let's take a look at Palm Beach. These are the top cities. Again, these graphics are on sfmarketintel.com. You could, go there and get some information that could help you out. If you wanted to co-brand this information, it's there for you. This is Martin County. All right, active inventory. This is a number of active listings at the end of the month. And as you could see, a little bit surprising because Miami-Dade had been increasing month on month. It is down year over year, but Broward and Palm Beach are up. Probably for some of the reasons that you mentioned earlier in terms of Miami-Dade.
100%. And again, inventory is what we need. So we should be welcoming of some inventory, especially if we're getting the inventory in the price points that we need it in the more affordable price points. So it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Median percent of original price received. I'll go over this one quickly because this is, without a doubt, always been around 100% at list price. So really, and you can see where it really went off the chart. If it could have went over 100%, it would have. We'll go to the next one. Median time to contract. How many days does it take to come to terms in South Florida? So Miami-Dade, it takes 28 days. Broward, 24. Palm Beach, 26. Remember,
Chris, stop here for a second. Yeah, I was going to say, stop here for a second, because if somebody were to just take these stats out of context and they would say, and I'm just going to pick on Broward for a second. So 24 days, that's up 41%. 24 days is like historically low. Look at Palm Beach, 26 days, up 52%. Well, if they took just that 52%, that would sound like, oh my gosh. But just take your mind back to what a year ago or a year and a half ago felt like. I think a home was on the market if it was on the market for 7 days, we're like, what's wrong? Why didn't it sell? What happened? So these numbers are 24 days is historically a low number. Very, very still rapidly moving market.
Right. And you make a great point about how people can look at that year over year number. Yes, that's where we're talking about, knowing the data and seeing the long term.
Yeah, I mean, 30 to 90 days. If it's within between 30 and 90 days, it's pretty much a normalized market. Days that it's taking more than 90 days to sell something in let's call it price points. That stat would be different. But let's just call it our median price points. 24 days, super fast, sitting in a seller's market.
There you go. Definitely. Okay, so let's go over some of the points that we've talked about. Active listings, actually, I have this in the news release that we're putting out today, still down 56.2% when you compare it pre-pandemic. So we still have a long way to go in terms of the inventory rates. We talked about that earlier, and how sales are down because of the comps, and our prices, of course, continue to rise. Okay, so let's get to our global study answers. Who answered them correctly? Let me take a look here in the chat. We do have some other questions here that we'll get to, I see now. Okay, Beatrice. Okay, we'll see who. Let me go ahead to the next slide here. So the number one country purchasing in South Florida is Argentina. It's Lionel Messi, who now plays at Inter Miami, and they won the World Cup, and they also are number one here for global buyers. And Beatrice Acevedo, congratulations, you got that correct. Argentina. She was the first.
That's awesome.
Great job.
You see what one influencer can do.
There you go.
Who knew soccer?
Yeah, incredible. Okay, so let's go to the next question here. How many total countries purchased real estate in South Florida? This is according to our last 2002 global study. It's 54. 54 countries. I'm not sure if anybody, let me look here in the chat.
Well, we are the melting pot. I love that. 54 countries. I mean, just stand anywhere in downtown Miami and listen to all of the languages we now hear. It's incredible. It's awesome.
Yeah. That is one of the reasons I love living here is, you go into Publix and the cashier, speaks to you in Spanish, and it's nowhere else you have that. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I know, and of course, we're hearing so many other languages. I'll stand there and I'll hear German, or I'll hear, I heard Dutch the other day, and I hear Italian a lot, and I hear French, and it's just, I love it. It's become much more of a global study. It's really cool.
Yeah. Guillermo Fernandez in the chat. Thank you for your, he guessed 36. So, hey, you were close.
Close.
Thank you for answering that. And what percentage of Florida global real estate sales are made in South Florida? 53%. But take a look at who's number two. You have to go to Orlando at 10%. So it really shows the incredible market we have here for global.
It's massive.
And actually, before I get to the tools and resources, the chat has been very active. Let me get to some of those questions here. Guillermo earlier had said you were talking about buy downs. He has seen builders offering 4.99 with a buy down.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, again, Guillermo is 100% right. We've seen builders get very creative. And remember, you're licensed in the state. So if you have a customer looking for something locally and maybe the product isn't available, maybe it's available somewhere else. So I want you guys to be think outside of the box. But I have seen that across the board. I've seen some really good opportunities being offered by some of our builders.
Excellent. Okay. And then Andres asked, when we were showing the household income, he asked, the gross household income increase doubled in 2021. But how much of that had actually to do with people moving from other states versus local households that have been here before 2020?
No, that's all incoming. That is what has changed based on what's relocated. So if we talked about what Florida was prior to what our industries were that were driving our economy versus what's happened now over the last 2 years, we didn't have a big banking. I mean, we had some banking. Brickell has always had, a big international banking presence, but we've actually brought hedge funds in. Citadel is relocated from Chicago to South Florida. You're seeing, some of the big New York funds come here. Or Connecticut funds. We hadn't seen that historically. Well, those are typically very high paid, high income earning individuals that that work in these companies. And so that's what's driven this income and this increase that we're seeing. It's not necessarily local people who just got a significant increase in salary.
Right. It's from out of state. Yep.
That's out of state.
Yeah. And then Nicole in the chat talks about Sunstats needs to make it prettier and the right size to fit on social media. That's a good, we could talk to Florida Realtors is the one
that's Florida Realtor product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we could talk to them about that. And then a lot of emails. I will be getting to those. And I thought there was, Nicole says it doesn't feel like a buyer's market for 1 million and up.
It's going to depend on where you are. So in certain condo buildings, in certain places, it's starting to feel like a buyer's market. But in other buildings, it's not. And remember, think about what we're dealing with. We are dealing with a tale of multiple things happening at the same time. So if we have a newer building that's well reserved, and because of construction, insurance costs are lower, that will fare better than an older building that is not well reserved, that needs to now assess for the reserves. So again, lots of reasons why you're seeing, that's why this is so important to understand. That's why you're seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then Alexandria Duncan, she says, is that 24 days to go under contract or to actually close on under contract?
So if we're referring back to pending sales, it's from the time we go active to the time we go pending. The close period could take another 20 days, 15 days, or 45 days. There's no, again, that's the due diligence period, but that would be the stats count. The clock stops when we go pending.
Yeah. And then Beatrice says, yay, I got it right. Thanks. So
congratulations, Beatrice.
You get the gold star. And actually she has, okay, I'll do one more question because I know we're at 3:00. Beatrice, since you're right, her question is, how does the buy down work with developers? I'm trying to work with pre-construction.
Awesome. So most developers have an in-house lender partner that they work with, because developers have more, let's just say, control over pricing within their product type or within their community or in their building. They have an opportunity to work out the mortgages directly with their lender partners. So I would be having that conversation with the developers that you're working with or with the builders you're working with, because they will connect you with the lenders that are their preferred in-house lenders.
Yeah, great. And actually, thank you to Daniel French. Beatrice, he says there's a new construction class on September 26th in the chat. So yeah, the members are helping each other. So that's awesome.
That's what it is. We are one industry. We can't forget that. We need to help each other. That's how we all get through these things.
Natascha, I know it's 3:00. Let me go through the rest of these slides. Do you have a couple more minutes or?
I do.
Okay, I'll just fast forward through all these. We had talked about this, Sunstats. We have co-branding material. We did not talk about this. If you guys go to miamirealtors.com/co-brand, we have recently updated these flyers, so you could take a look at that.
Those are great. Those, if I were, selling real estate, I would have this in every one of my buyer presentations and every one of my listing consultations. I would make sure I had access and had this data printed out. So either, put it in your digital presentations or print it out in your binders that you're using. Excellent.
Okay, great. Photify, this is an app. It's only available on your phone. It's for realtors. It is free for Miami members. The association has preloaded this with templates that, for instance, if you have an open house, you could put the open house and then your picture will show up in the bottom with your logo. You just have to register, but it's free, and it's free for all Miami members. And we talked about the reports as an example of how it looks like. When you go on sfmarketintel.com, you will have these reports available. We have infographics, videos. You'll be seeing that on social media. We have a zip code reports. We talked about that. Our PR, our trainers that are here to serve, to help you guys out. And then these are stats. Okay, we'll do one last one. This is a look, cross-market demand. So which markets are looking out-of-state markets are looking at our Miami-Dade, and of course it's New York. And
There's like no comparison, like New York, and then there's like everybody else.
yeah. It was like when Brad O'Connor, the Florida Realtors economist, he had to do a separate slide just for New York, their interest in Florida. It was crazy.
Yeah, the truth is, look, if you look at number 8 and 9, those are actually also part of the, the 5 boroughs of New York, both Queens and Kings County. So you could add that to New York, because that New York is Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Right. And we got your Queens County there.
There you go.
And then here's Broward. You guys, this is available. This is actually realtor.com. You could get that information for the different counties. And I just wanted to get to my information here. This is my email, and then our social media. Natascha, thank you so much. You are a rock star. You did. I learned a lot. I took down a lot of notes. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Chris. And just like you guys, you can connect with me on social, on Twitter, the Natascha Tello. You'll find me.
Excellent. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much, everybody online and on the Zoom. Thank you, and we will see you next month.
Bye, guys.
Bye.